Hello, my sweet summer children. I'm back with some juice to get you through the long night. In Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 7, The Dragon and the Wolf, we find out through Bran that Robert's rebellion was built on a lie. But whose lie? In the real world, almost all wars ever fought were built on lies one way or the other. But in the beginning of our story, we see a war unfold in front of us that's built on a lie. So why would Robert's rebellion be any different? The war between the Lannisters and the Starks was built on a lie. The Starks and the Lannisters had no love between them, but it was a lie and then another lie that set the Starks and the Lannisters at odds. In Winterfell, in Season 1, Lysa Arryn sent Lady Catelyn a secret letter that the Lannisters had poisoned her husband, Jon Arryn. Later, it was made clear that it was Lysa and Littlefinger that conspired together to kill Jon Arryn.
You gave me those drops and told me to pour them into Jon's wine, my husband's wine. When you told me to write a letter to Cat, telling her it was a Lannister.
This doesn't start the war, but this starts an investigation into what happened to Jon Arryn, and it sets Ned to looking at the Lannisters as murderers. And it's this letter that is the deciding factor for Ned that he needs to go to King's Landing and act as a hand of the king in hopes of protecting Robert from the Lannisters. When the Catspaw tries to kill Bran, Catelyn takes the blade he was armed with to King's Landing, and there's yet another lie that escalates the feud between the Lannisters even further. And this is the lie that Tyrion was the owner of the Catspaw blade. This lie caused Catelyn to seize Tyrion on the King's Road and take him to the Eyrie, and that action caused Jaime to attack Ned Stark in the streets of King's Landing. It was a series of events that caused the War of the Five Kings, but it all started with the seeds that were planted by Littlefinger and Lysa Arryn. Had they never have sent the cutthroat or the letter, Ned would have had no reason to suspect the Lannisters of anything. This brings us to Robert's rebellion being built on a lie.
Lord Went held a great tourney at Harrenhal. Everyone was there. The Mad King, your father, Robert Baratheon, and Lyanna. She was already promised to Robert. The last two riders were Barristan Selmy and Rhaegar Targaryen. When Rhaegar won, everyone cheered for their prince. Remember the girls laughing when he took off his helmet and they saw that silver hair? How handsome he was. Until he rode right past his wife, Elia Martell, and all the smiles died. He rode past his wife, and he lay a crown of winter roses in Lyanna's lap.
For that simple garland of pale blue roses, Rhaegar Targaryen had begun the dance that would rip the Seven Kingdoms apart. The match that lit this fire was at Harrenhal. Littlefinger was there, and no doubt he noticed as Brandon Stark had to be restrained because he was so angry at Rhaegar for dishonoring his sister Lyanna. Brandon wanted to confront Rhaegar. Ned was calmer, but he was not pleased either. As for Robert Baratheon himself, some say he laughed at the prince's gesture, claiming that Rhaegar had done no more than pay Lyanna her due. But those that knew him better say the young lord brooded on the insult, and that his heart hardened toward the Prince of Dragonstone from that day forth. When we fast forward to Riverrun, Littlefinger is in love with Catelyn Tully, who is betrothed to Brandon Stark. And when her wedding date is announced, he challenges Brandon Stark to a duel. He loses and is badly wounded. Lord Hoster Tully only gives Littlefinger a fortnight to recover at Riverrun before sending him back home to the Fingers. A fortnight is 2 weeks. Brandon Stark rides north to meet his father, Rickard Stark, for Brandon and Catelyn's wedding. But on the last day of the year, winter had come. As cold winds hammered King's Landing, Aerys, the Mad King, ordered his pyromancers to drive the winter off with their magic. Huge green fires burned along the walls of the Red Keep for a moon's turn, but Prince Rhaegar was not in the city to observe them, nor was he at Dragonstone with Princess Elia and her children. With the coming of the new year, the crown prince had taken to the road with half a dozen of his closest friends and confidants. on a journey that would ultimately lead him back to the Riverlands. Not 10 leagues from Harrenhal, Rhaegar fell upon Lyanna Stark of Winterfell and carried her off, lighting a fire that would consume his house and kin and all those he loved, and half of the realm as well. So we have Brandon leaving Riverrun, we have Rhaegar and Lyanna 10 leagues from Harrenhal, and we have Littlefinger leaving Riverrun for the Fingers. When Brandon met his father in the north, they were on their way back to Riverrun when word reached Brandon Stark of Lyanna's alleged abduction by Prince Rhaegar. Fueled with anger and the wild taint of the wolf's blood, Brandon and his companions rode to King's Landing immediately. Brandon bursted into the throne room demanding that Rhaegar come out and die. The full depth of King Aerys's madness was eventually revealed in his depraved actions against Lord Rickard, Brandon, and their supporters after they demanded redress for Rhaegar's wrongs. Instead of granting them a fair trial, he had them brutally slain. Lord Rickard demanded a trial by combat, and the Mad King chose Wildfire as his champion, cooking Lord Stark alive in front of Brandon, while Brandon strangled himself on a Tyroshi device while reaching for his sword. When the Mad King sent a raven to Jon Arryn demanding the heads of his former wards Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark, Jon refused and called his banners in response, and that began Robert's rebellion and the fall of dragons. I feel like the lie was told to Brandon. He is the first one to get news of the abduction and the first one to arrive in King's Landing. But who told him? Let's look at the map. Everything transpires in the Riverlands. We have Rhaegar and Lyanna and company 10 leagues from Harrenhal. 1 league is equivalent to 3 miles, so 10 leagues is 30 miles. So they were 30 miles from Harrenhal. That could put them anywhere in this vicinity. Brandon and his party left Riverrun to meet up with his father and were returning back to Riverrun. So who could have been on the road to tell Brandon such a lie? Who has the motive to start a fire that would burn through the 7 kingdoms? Littlefinger. Littlefinger was turned out of Riverrun and sent away. He is leaving Riverrun and going to the Fingers. We know he goes to the Fingers because from there he sent a letter to Catelyn after Brandon's death that she burned without reading. So Salt Pans seems like a likely place for this to have all transpired. Rhaegar and Lyanna probably didn't ride horses all the way to Dorne. It's just not likely. They probably wanted to be away from watchful eyes and whisperers and riders and everyone else. So it's likely that they got on a ship at Salt Pans to head for Dorne. Littlefinger needs to go to the Fingers. The roads into the Vale of Arryn are not safe, and we learned that in Book 1 when Catelyn's party is set upon and dwindled into nothing. Also, Tyrion and Bronn are nearly attacked by the Mountain Clans. Baelish also wasn't given much time to heal, so he was in poor shape, so he probably booked passage on a ship to the Fingers. And it was probably in Salt Pans that he saw Lyanna and Rhaegar boarding a ship together. And remembering the visible fury in the wild wolf's face at the Tourney of Harrenhal, the wild wolf that had just taken his lady and scarred him terribly. Littlefinger decided to play a game. He either went himself, knowing Brandon would be coming down the King's Road to Riverrun, and told Brandon himself, or he sent a rider to deliver the message to Brandon. Chaos is a ladder.
Do you know what I learned losing that duel? I learned that I'll never win. Not that way. That's their game. Their rules. I'm not going to fight them. I'm going to fuck them.
What do you think? I'm convinced it was Littlefinger that started all this. We've seen what he's capable of. He is the one that started the war between the Starks and the Lannisters. It fits his MO. He definitely had motive to do this. What do you guys think? I'm interested to know. As always, thank you for watching. If you like videos like this, please give this video a thumbs up. Click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell and join the Sweet Summer family. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.
Shame.